Hi, and welcome back to this video. This is a very different video on my channel today. There's something very exciting. I am interviewing Amelia Ihlo from Rooted Farmers. And just so you know, this is much more of a talking video. So I would highly recommend that you listen to this like a podcast. It is long, but if you are at all interested in what Rooted Farmers is, then I highly recommend that you listen to this video. It really is helpful, and Amelia really takes us and tells us different things about Rooted. So she talks about how to communicate with florists and what systems to use, how to scale your business. She talks about the analytics of Rooted, what is Rooted, who can use Rooted, like what farmers will be qualified to use Rooted, how to find buyers. It really goes into depth about those things. I got a friend here. He is sad. I'm trying to catch this morning light. So just put in your earbuds, listen to this like a podcast. It's really interesting. Be aware this is broken into two parts. The second part of the interview will come out in just a day or two. And that Amelia will screen share with us and take us into the system itself. So watch for that. It's really great. One thing that Amelia said at the end of this was, this is the long game. Like, your sales are a long game, not a short game. And I just thought that was a really great quote from Amelia, and a good thing for us to think about moving into this year and thinking about 2026. Also, there is a coupon code if you're interested in joining Rooted. It's cap sensitive, abundant blooms 26. So that will give you $75 off either tier of the platform. There's an essentials tier and a pro tier, and that will give you $75 off either one of those programs. So without further ado, here is the interview with Amelia and myself from September. Enjoy. It's really good. Today we're in for a really special treat. We have Amelia Ihlo with us from Rooted Farmers. She is the founder of Rooted Farmers, and she is going to be walking us through different things about Rooted Farmers and what it is and why it came about and how you can utilize it for your farm if that works for you. And so I'm just going to welcome her and have her introduce herself and tell us a little bit about her farming background. Welcome, Amelia.
Thank you, Ruth Ann. I'm glad to be here. It's fun. It's been fun watching your journey as you've been building this YouTube community and knowing where we started years ago, kind of just figuring it out together. So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I know I joined Rooted, I believe, in 2021, which
Hmm.
Rooted has grown a lot since
Yeah.
2021 as well. So that has been a really fun thing to watch, also. And I
Yeah.
think when I joined Rooted, you told me I was like the first farmer on Rooted in West Michigan.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
it has grown
Yep, which
a lot.
is it's really fun, and I still remember our early conversations. Like, I remember pulling over. We live in rural New Hampshire, and I remember pulling over on the side of the road because I knew my cell phone would cut out. We'd just lose cell service as we were talking about kind of some buyer questions that you had. So it's been really fun to just kind of have that grow together just
Yeah, that's
over the
super
years.
fun.
Yeah.
So can you tell us about just a little bit about your farming background and what inspired you to start Rooted Farmers?
Sure. So, I have a little bit of an unconventional, though I feel like it is much more common than I think I realized at the time, which is my foray into farming started actually from my career in finance, and I spent close to 15 years working in finance, and there were so many great things about it, and also there was sort of like this point in time where I had my three kids, and they were getting older, and I was just feeling like working in finance was not like the most fulfilling thing that I could be doing with my days. And I really wanted to be farming. I had kind of grown up around a lot of farms and worked on farms in college, and was really kind of looking for my out from finance and into farming, and started a flower farm in 2016, 2017. And just like most of us, I didn't know what I didn't know. And so it was a very steep learning curve, learning how to grow for production. I think I was struck by just coming from an industry where technology is so heavily integrated into everything we were doing, and then stepping into farming and really being struck by the lack of technology and resources that were really built for us as growers, like really intentionally designed for our needs. And so that was kind of the initial catalyst was sort of this, huh, this is strange. It's odd that this isn't a problem that's been solved already. And so kind of as things were progressing, I was running our farm here and then also started a hub of growers in, winter of 2018, 2019. And so we were working with a group of folks here. We're in New Hampshire, right on the Vermont border, about halfway up the state. And we were selling down into the Boston area. And, at that time, I was managing everything in a very manual way. So availability lists, using a lot of Excel, emailing photos, and trying to manage all of the inventory management and orders and communication and payments and kind of the entire workflow for our farm and then also for all of our growers in the hub. And it got to just kind of my husband and I were sitting up at like 3 in the morning, elbowing each other, like trying to stay awake to continue keeping up with everything, which just it wasn't scalable. It wasn't something that was going to work over the long run. It wasn't even working for that one season to try to keep the wheels on the bus with all our kids and all the things. And so I started working on this kind of idea of, an Etsy, but for flower farms, where we as growers would go in and upload all of our inventory into our own profile, and then it would just magically aggregate across all of us for our buyers, and our buyers could go in and shop across all of the farms. And that was really kind of the goal was to build this tool that served as a marketplace for us as growers and then also for buyers. And so we launched that in August of 2019, which was the very best timing you could choose is August to make any changes to your business as a grower. And instantly our buyers doubled or tripled what they were spending with us. And so it was just sort of this shock of, wow, why did that happen? Why were they suddenly spending so much more with us? And when we went out and really researched, like, what did they like? What was holding them back from spending more money with these other systems that we were using, where it was like a Shopify website or an availability list or emails, and everything boiled down to how we were communicating about our product, what we were communicating about our product, and the ease of purchasing for the buyers. So basically, could we preempt all of their questions and just really serve them the most important information in a language that made sense to them? And if we could do all of that, they'd spend more money. And if they could spend more money, we as growers were more profitable. And so that was really the aha moment was, gosh, if we can create this sort of outcome for our farms, are we able to solve this problem broadly? Like, why not try to resolve all of these issues for growers across the board? And so that was kind of how we got started.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Um, and were there any other pain points that made you create Rooted, or was it really like the availability, communicating with florist? I'm just curious, at the beginning, was that the main purpose, the main pain point you were trying to solve?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all get into farming because we love growing. We love the production. We love the experience of cultivating product and cultivating relationships. And there's so much of that that we don't want to let go of, but it takes a lot of time. And there are also a lot of layers of the business that I think as you're growing, whether you're a farm or you're a hub, you're finding yourself, if you really sit down and think about how much time am I spending pushing buttons, which really isn't value add work, right? Like if you're operating in pencil and paper or, availability lists that you're creating in Excel and then managing all of these orders that are coming in a very manual way, and you really add up all of that time is coming from something, right? It's coming at the expense of some other work, whether that's spending time with your family or it's spending time in other parts of your business. If you are sitting and you are manually clicking buttons and typing and adding and trying to manage the systems that could be automated, that are not the like building relationships or growing your product, that time comes at the expense of that other work, right? So you are able to spend less time building relationships if you're spending all of this time pushing buttons. You're able to spend less time growing product, harvesting, managing your fields, weeding, all of the things, if instead you're having to spend your time in these manual systems that could be automated,
Mhm.
right? So there's a lot of just sort of that stepping back and recognizing I am a one-woman show. There's only so many hours in the day. It's really difficult here to find and hire work onto our farm and keep people consistently coming back. And so if I look at the places where I can kind of regain time back into my day, these are the systems that are kind of the low-hanging fruit that allow me to regain that time and then keep growing my business.
Yeah, I guess one of the pain points that I feel, or one of the things that Rooted does for me in my business, is just how robust that Rooted has become. And one of the things is the analytics, and that wasn't part of it at the beginning. That was something that evolved. And so it's interesting that, you didn't start it with that in mind, but
Yep.
just how much more beneficial and kind of giving you as a farmer this bird's eye view of helping you make decisions and understanding what's selling. And I
Yep.
just think that's such a valuable part of Rooted now. But so it's just interesting to see how it's evolved, because that wasn't
Yeah.
like, oh, the initial purpose, but just all these things that have grown um, out of how it started. I just think
Yeah.
it's really cool to see how the net has grown from the buyer perspective. Like, you're making
Yep.
it better for the buyer, but you're also making the grower's life better and easier. And you're making it so that we can make better business decisions and better understand our clients, and just anyway, different things like that, right? Just all in the analytics that has didn't used to exist when you first started.
Yep.
So,
It's totally true. It didn't exist when we first started, and it was not the first problem that we were trying to solve. We were really trying to solve communication challenges, right? Because there so many things broke down between buyers and sellers just based around communication. And so that was really the first set of challenges we were trying to resolve was like I would refer to things in Latin terms and my buyers would be like, cool, but I just need a pink focal flower and I don't know what those things are when I read them on a list. And so understanding that we needed a translation layer where as a grower, I could refer to things by and just choose from a drop-down menu, right? Like genus, species, series, cultivar, all the common names are automatically populated. And what we do on our back end is we're managing all the design elements, all of the pricing factors, things that drive prices up or down on particular products, and really kind of creating the translation for buyers so that as a buyer, I could go in and shop by choosing just my color palette and saying filler flowers. And it's going to automatically filter all of those listings without, as a grower, me having to do anything. Like all I'm doing is choosing an item from a drop-down menu. And then my buyers can shop in a way that's intuitive for them. Because for them, they're thinking in terms of their recipes. They're saying, okay, I need to put, this many stems into these arrangements, and I'm doing 20% focals and, you know, 35% fillers, and then I need foliage and I'm looking for area elements. And so all of that type of navigation and filtering is enabled by this. And what we realized after we'd been doing it for a little while is, gosh, we can actually translate that into insights for growers. And so, because of how we've built the system, we can automate all these analytics that you're talking about. So, we can look back at, like, this year compared to last year for sales. We can look at this month compared to last month, or we can look at, which colors were selling really well over a particular time period, or, what was my product mix in the second quarter of the year or in June specifically? And how did that shift compared with last year? So we'll take a look at all of those analytics in a little while, but I think that was just a really exciting byproduct. And I think what's been so fun for us at Rooted is hearing all the feedback from growers saying, "Oh my gosh, have you thought of XYZ?" And being able to turn that into, new tools that we're bringing out to our growers and to our buyers. Buyers have analytics too.
Yeah, okay, interesting. I don't even know if I remembered that, but yeah, so before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I feel like I would love it if you could just define, like, pretend like I am um a
I don't know if you can hear the heavy breathing, but my dog is here and she's very needy right now. So that is not me. That is her.
oh, I didn't
Sorry.
hear it,
Okay.
um but yeah, if you could just explain to me what is Rooted Farmers?
Yeah. So Rooted is sort of it's an inventory management tool for growers, and it's also a marketplace where buyers and sellers can connect. And so we have a lot of logic in the platform that if you think about Facebook or you think about LinkedIn, any of those social media accounts where you're kind of creating a network, you can discover new buyers in your area if you're a grower, and if you're a buyer, you can discover new sellers in your area. And so, you are prompted when a new grower joins the platform, you're prompted as a buyer to go in and connect with them. And it's that connection that builds your network as a seller, and allows them to shop. Now, you're always in control of that as a grower. We're never going to opt you into selling to somebody without you deciding that this was somebody that you'd like to work with. But that marketplace feature is one of the key differentiators from a lot of the other platforms out there, where you can discover new relationships. And I think we've done grower surveys and really tried to understand what sort of impact does that have on our members. And we learned that more than 80% of our growers have grown their network meaningfully since joining Rooted.
Mhm.
And so there is that potential to kind of build new relationships who are folks who we would call like really warm leads for you. So they're people who clearly already are looking for local flowers. They're motivated to source from local growers and they're within your radius. And there can be people that you're never even like, it would never occur to you to go out and try to build those relationships. And I think that's just reducing those barriers for us as sellers to kind of finding a market for our product. Does
Yeah,
that answer your question?
yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think that's helpful. The other question I get is from florists. They don't
Yeah.
understand what this is. Even people that have been connected with me and buying from me for a long time, they'll buy from another farm in West Michigan who also uses Rooted and say, well, like they'll think that's me, or they'll think they're me, or they don't understand what it really is. And yeah, so I don't know if you want to speak to that briefly as well about, like, if I'm a florist, how do they understand Rooted?
Yeah, that can happen occasionally. And I think it can happen more with florists who have been in the business for a long time and maybe are not quite as tech savvy and not quite as plugged into social media, maybe, really understanding how the platform is a tool, but it is not the actual grower. So it can happen. I think it's the sort of thing that just requires a little bit of messaging from you as a grower to say, we use Rooted to sell our flowers, and you can create a comparison. You can say Rooted is a lot like Etsy, where we go on and we list our product. There are other growers who are also there. And it's very much a rising tide lifts all boats, right? So I think as a grower, we often can worry that if we're joining a marketplace like that, we might be making it easy for our buyers to find another grower to source from. And what we've found over the years of studying this really intensively is that actually everybody sells more because we've solved so many problems for the buyers. And so you're not competing with each other. the way that you think you are. You're competing with importers, really, is where that market share is coming from, is that buyers prefer to work with local growers. They prefer that. And if we are reducing that friction for buyers by bringing kind of more growers into this community, and creating a one-stop shop basically for local flowers for those buyers, the buyers end up spending a lot more money with us as growers. So
Yeah.
there's some messaging sometimes to do with some of those buyers, just kind of explaining what the platform is. We do have tools on our website. We've got a blog post that has like a trifold that explains it to buyers. You can always download that and hand it to them. But it's a resource for them at the end of the
Yeah.
day.
I mean, that's kind of how I've explained it to a few of florists, and it just they seem to understand it when I say it's like an Etsy shop.
Yeah,
I have
yeah,
my shop, they have their shop. You can buy from both of us, but we're not, connected.
yep, yep.
So, but it was just pretty funny.
And it always says on the cart too. So when they're checking out, it'll split their orders and it'll say, you're picking up these things here for this grower and you're picking up these things over here at a different address. And we put it in like bright red font. So it's really clear and very obvious for them. And then they get two different order confirmations. So it's all spelled out for them.
Mm, that's helpful. Um, Okay, let's move on a little bit. Can you explain the process of applying to become a seller on Rooted Farmers? So I'm a farmer and I want to start selling my flowers
Yep.
unrooted. What would that look like? How does that work?
Yeah, so you would just navigate to rootedfarmers.com. You'd go to our website, and there's a button in the upper right-hand corner that says sign in or sign up. And so if you don't yet have an account, you would just sign up, and it's going to ask you to set up a username and password, and then you'd have to choose what you're trying to do. So you're either trying to buy in the marketplace or you're trying to sell in the marketplace. So if you're a grower, you'd choose sell. And then once you take that next step, it's going to ask you if you're a farm or if you're a hub and what type of farm you are. And it just walks you through an application process. So unlike Etsy, and this is an important distinction. So Etsy is a shop where anybody can go on and create their own storefront, and there's no vetting that happens. You would just decide that you make jewelry and you're going on to, sell your jewelry on Etsy. And so you'd create a jewelry account and nobody's really screening anybody who comes onto the platform. That's not how Rooted works. So we are what's called a curated marketplace, which means that we do vet everybody who's joining. And we vet on the buyer side if you're a wholesale buyer to make sure you're a legitimate business and that you should have access to wholesale pricing, that you should not be paying sales tax, kind of across the board on the business side for buyers. Same thing on the grower side. So on the grower side, what we are looking for is to make sure that we're upholding our commitments to our wholesale buyers in particular. So um, a lot of the volume, more than half of the volume that transacts on Rooted goes wholesale. And that really means that those customers need to feel confident when they're stepping into the marketplace that they are working with growers who really understand the difference between selling, at a farmer's market or at a farm stand and selling to a, high-end wedding or event florist. And there are key differences. And so that's what we're looking for in that application process for growers is we're looking to understand your years of growing experience, all the different sales channels that you have experience selling into, um, what your harvest practices look like. We look at your social media, we look at your website. So we're really looking for photo evidence that you are an experienced grower and that you are prepared to step into this, wholesale market, and to meet the expectations of these wholesale buyers who are already part of that network. So we don't have hard and fast rules about like, you must have at least 3 years growing experience and at least 2 years of wholesale experience, but we're we are all farmers who are reviewing these applications. We're all growers. And so we understand growing and harvesting and selling into these markets and have a good sense when we're looking at folks' photos and whether they have that sort of experience. And so often if we get an application from somebody who doesn't quite meet those criteria, we'll ask for more information. And we'll say, it wasn't clear to us from your application if you have experience. Can you add more context? And we'll go back and forth and give them an opportunity to kind of share more about their background, their growing or selling experience. If they don't have social media or a website, they can submit photos via email, just kind of sharing in an email or via like a cloud link to a photo portfolio. But those photos really are how we're vetting, do you have experience kind of growing for this audience?
So if you are a farmer and you want to sell to florists,
Hmm.
let's say, or sell wholesale,
Yep.
and you're not able, you don't have any experience, and let's say you've decided that you as Rooted say, we really think you need more experience before you join this marketplace. What advice do you have for them, or how can they practically um, get to the point where they would be able to join Rooted to have all the benefits of using Rooted and tracking inventory and connecting?
Yeah, so I'll specifically speak to flowers because I think that's probably most of your audience. So Rooted works for food production and flower production growers and hubs, but specifically for a flower applicant, I think it's not a deal breaker if you don't yet have experience selling wholesale. I think what we would look for then is, have you been doing weddings and events yourselves? Like, are you a farmer florist and you really understand kind of the stages of harvest that you're looking for and what you're cutting for and kind of what the end use of that product is. But generally, I think if we get an applicant from somebody who is a year zero grower, our response is probably different to that person than somebody who's been growing for a couple of years but not selling wholesale. And so it's pretty subjective, I will say, like on that spectrum. So like if a person has never sold anything wholesale, but they've been growing for a couple of years, we might ask them, have you thought about working with florists? Have you tried building any relationships? How has that gone? And we'll have a dialogue around that. And it could be that that makes sense for them to give it a shot if they're willing to kind of put the time into relationship building. Because that is one thing I will say is that we do have this network. It is never a substitute for you as a grower building lasting relationships with your buyers because that's what they're looking for is they want a relationship with you. They want to know their farmer. They want to know the product. They want to be able to give feedback and they want to be able to kind of have that ongoing repeat buyer relationship with you.
Mhm.
And so we'll ask questions around that. If you're a year zero grower and you've never grown anything at production scale and you've never sold anything wholesale, we will ask you to go back and, take a year, take 2 years to really work on working out all the kinks, right? I mean, we know those first 2 years of growing are brutal. They're really hard. Even if you've been growing other things for a while, like stepping into commercial cut flower production is different. It's different and it requires I think just time for you to figure out what is it that you don't know and how can you kind of make those mistakes before you step into the higher stakes relationships of like selling to an event florist who is putting their reputation on the line to work with you and your product. And so it's really making sure for that year zero grower, like just take some time and really learn how to produce.
Yeah, thanks. That's really helpful. And then the other question I've seen from my like in the Facebook group that I run is things like, so if I'm just, trying to get wholesale sale experience and I can't be part of Rooted or, I'm just not at that level yet, benchmark yet, how do I communicate with my florist? So do you have any quick, like helpful, how can they communicate with florists and their,
Yeah, I mean, I think ask your florist their preferred method because I think that is the biggest hurdle is you really need to walk into your local florist, have a conversation with them, try to understand how they are comfortable building a relationship with you because you may be the new kid on the block and you kind of have to work around what their needs are and what their systems are. So if they tell you, just stop by every week, bring me buckets and let me just take a look at your product so I can get a sense for quality before I go through any of those steps, that may be an answer that they give you. If they say, text me or send me a DM with what you have available, I've gotten that as an answer when I've stepped into a new florist, right? So I think it really depends on what your florists are used to because your first goal is to build that relationship again, is to really understand how do they like to work? What do they look for in product? How can you make sure that you are meeting their expectations from a quality perspective? Because the system can come afterwards. The system is never going to be a substitute for really high quality product, though. And that's why you really want to nail that first and make sure that you're meeting their expectations before you kind of try to jump in with both feet before you're actually ready to.
Yeah, I love that answer. I feel the same way, and I think sometimes what people call like the bucket route is not always, I don't know, the most glamorous thing, or I don't know, but for me, that's really how I started is
Yeah.
I had two florists that bought from me every week and they knew I was coming every Tuesday and they would buy things. There was no like, minimum or anything and that's how I started and
Yeah.
that really did help me like what are they buying and is it the most efficient? No, maybe not for
No,
the farmer because
but
I'm
you're learning
harvesting.
so much.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I was learning so much. And then the other farm or shop that I worked with that first year, I worked with three. So two, I pretty much did point of sale, like straight out of my van. And
Yep.
the other one, I called every single Monday
Yep.
afternoon and after I had harvested, so I knew what I had, and that's how we did that. So she liked a phone call. She didn't hardly buy anything like off the truck, but I learned so much
Yeah.
doing that. And I never sent them emails. I never, had to yeah, go back and forth with them or and they bought, it's not like
Yeah.
you wouldn't buy because if you go there and half the time they're not going to buy anything, that's a little discouraging. But
Yeah.
they get used to you though and they know you're
Yep.
coming and so that worked really well for me to start and to learn a lot. I
I
learned.
mean, I think if you said a couple things. So I think if you really think about your first year of selling wholesale with two goals in mind, it's the first one is trust, and you want to build a relationship based on trust. And what you need to do there is get in front of them. Even if they're not buying something, you're showing up and you're showing them the quality that you have, and you're making it clear. And you can leave things behind. Like your sales are a long game, not a short game. And so you're really thinking about how do I get this customer to be a repeat buyer in a year or in 2 years? And it's really recognizing that they've spent a lot of years building their own business and their own reputation. And in order to switch from whatever they're using to source now to you, they need to be really sure you know what you're doing. And so trust is that like really key goal for that first year. But the other one, and I think it really informs the trust that you talked about, Ruth Ann, is consistency. If you are committing to these buyers, they want to know you're going to be there every week, same day, same schedule. You are going to be showing up. And that is really crucial for them to know, like, if I make a change, are you definitely going to be there? Are you definitely going to be showing up for me when I try to source product from you? And that consistency where you are hitting every Monday phone call and every Tuesday bucket drops, that's huge. If you just kind of nail those two things in your first year, you're going to learn so much.
Yeah, for sure. And then what I noticed the second year, and by the way, I still sell to all three of those florists today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so this is my fifth season with these three florists. And what I learned the next year was they all pretty much doubled in their buying.
Yeah.
Um, and now that kind of capped out. We didn't double and double and double for 5 years, but they're still very consistent customers of mine, and
Hmm.
but definitely though from year one to year two, I was like, wow, they're ordering like or getting twice as much from me. So, but that's because they learned me also. And now that I have a relationship with these florists, the one in particular told me she's always a little wary of new growers because one time she bought sunflowers from a flower farmer and then they dropped pollen all over.
Uh,
And so it just makes her concerned about any new person. Like she
yeah.
just doesn't trust them until she can prove, their product. And that was one flower that I did start with was sunflowers, and I still sell them sunflowers every week. So
And there you go. I mean, she's articulating for you what some buyers are not as great at articulating, which is that trust. Like that was, she's had a bad experience. It ended up impacting her business.
yeah,
Clearly, like if she knew that they were dropping pollen, she heard about it from her buyers.
yeah,
And that was negative feedback she got. And now she's like, I can't afford negative feedback. And she's translating that into like, prove it to me that I can work with you, right?
right.
So that is not an unusual story. I think that is the rule, not the exception. And that's really what we do as growers is more than anything, we're just building trust with those
Yeah.
buyers.
Yeah, and then also I brought her samples before I ever expected her to buy
Totally.
anything from
Yeah.
me. So, so she did have an idea of my sunflowers and different things before I was like,
Yep.
you pay me for these things.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, so that was how I started out, and that worked really well for me. So just encouragement for new growers out there if you're
Yeah.
thinking of doing this next year. Um Okay, one other area that I hear a lot about is from farmers is rooted is too expensive. Um, I don't know if it's worth it. Um, and they have concerns about that. So could you go over the pricing and then
Yep.
maybe explain like why rooted is so helpful and why you would make that money back? And I mean, you've kind of touched on this, like you started this platform and your sales were doubling, and I have found that too. Just you make it easy for them and they will buy more from you just because it's easy and
Yep.
they know you and trust you. But yeah, could you go into the pricing structure,
Yeah.
those things?
So we sort of have a hybrid pricing plan, which is, we have different tiers essentially. So we have a subscription fee and we try to keep it relatively low and manageable. And then we also have a transaction fee. So the subscription fee is really intended to make sure you're serious about it because we invest time in onboarding our growers. We have a lot of support resources. We have a weekly Zoom Q&A call where we're just sitting on Zoom with you if you have any questions, helping you get set up, getting you onboarded. And so that subscription fee is intended to really make sure that you're serious about getting set up.
Can you tell us if Rooted has an impact on the farmer's sales and if you can tell that Rooted has increased farmers' sales, like how many flowers they're selling?
Yep. Yeah, so we actually did a survey this year because we knew anecdotally that it had a really big impact on folks' ability to um, network and build more relationships, but also to just make them a more profitable operation. But we couldn't quantify it until we actually fielded a survey to really understand. So I actually have a graphic here that I can share. So I'll
Yeah,
just share my
perfect.
screen because I think these were really powerful, just data points that came out of that. And this came from, hundreds of responses that we got from our grower members. And it really distills down the impact that it has for growers and their businesses. So number one is they're selling a lot more. And so 92% of sellers saw an increase in sales, and 40% of them were more than doubling their sales. That's huge.
Yeah,
That's
wow.
huge. That 92% were that they're increasing their sales by 50%. And then the folks who are in this kind of second cohort, this 40% of growers, are more than doubling what they were selling before they joined Rooted, regardless of what other systems they were using before. So that's huge. So they're selling more product, and we've validated that across our members. The second is that they're saving time. So they're selling more and spending less time actually selling more product. So the average number that was reported was over a full day, full work day per week. That's like a couple months out of the entire year, and you're suddenly getting back all of that time. And that's the average. So there are people who are saving more than that. And, I think it's really obviously going to be unique to your business, but it has the potential to just lift off of you. And I don't know what your farm looks like, but we don't have consistent, reliable help that we're kind of outsourcing a lot of our workflows to. So we're really conscious of anywhere we can save 8 hours in a week. Like that's just a gift to put that back. And you can put more time into other parts of your business if you want to. You can build more relationships, or you can just like sit down for dinner with your family, right? Like you can have that time back as a family because you're not having to push buttons and like manage all of these really disjointed systems. Instead, you're kind of streamlining here.
Yeah, for sure. I can attest to these things myself. Well, when I first started using Rooted, you didn't have the point of sale. So when I had point of sale orders, I was like coming home or like writing their orders on scraps of paper and shoving them in my purse and then coming home and writing invoices. And I made mistakes. And so that's what it would be like without Rooted, right? Like, so I was making errors and just, it just took a lot of time and it was just something I had to do. And so yeah, I definitely, and then just makes you super streamlined and more professional and just saves so much time and
Yeah.
just is so organized, right? You're so organized without having to put effort, very much effort into it, as long as you're putting things in properly into
Yeah.
rooted systems, obviously. But
We kind of force you to streamline in like really healthy ways. And it's all very intuitive because we're all farmers here. So we are all doing this and then using it. And so we're having to really be kind of on the receiving end of our own decisions on the product side. So our whole team is farmers on the operation side, and so we're or hub managers, and we're all using it in some way. So we know right away when things are not working the way that we want them to, and we can make changes, or when we really need to make an improvement in the workflow.
mm-hmm.
And we are self-interested enough that, we're running our own farms and we need them to work, so they need to move quickly. Um, and so then the last point here that I'll just call out is the expansion of the network. So one of the big differences between Rooted and pretty much every other platform out there where you can sell, farm perishable product, is that we're a marketplace, and we're the only true marketplace out there. And what that means is, and we talked a little bit about this when we were talking about the application process, but you have the potential for discovery. So we're never a replacement for the human relationships that you're building with your buyers. But we do offer you up a whole lot of warm leads, right? So these are folks who have already joined the platform and are clearly interested in sourcing local product, have sought that out in some fashion. And for them, I think they're really looking to solve more of their sourcing needs from local farms. And so it's an asset to them that they can not only go in and shop from Ruth Ann, but shop from Ruth Ann's neighbor also, right? Like that's a really big benefit to them. And it's something that you can use as a selling point as a grower too, is that, they can have kind of a one-stop shop where they only have to remember one login, they only have to go to one place to kind of learn how to shop in one way, and now they can do it all in one spot. And so, because of a lot of those benefits to them, there is just so much more connection that's happening between buyers and sellers. So, you've got lots of kind of fragmented growers and then fragmented buyers, and we're just helping you to connect the dots. So, you've got a list of nearby. If you're a grower, you've got a list of nearby seller buyers who are, open for connections there. And if you're a buyer, you have a list of nearby producers and hubs that they can connect with. And so we're constantly prompting you. When a new member comes on, we're saying, hey, a new buyer has joined in your area. Do you want to connect with them? And
Yep.
then it's up to you as a grower if you want to let them shop from you or not. You don't have to. That's up to you.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I get those emails all the time and I go check them out and see what I want to decide. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, I've definitely benefited from that as well. I had a buyer last year that connected with me that I didn't know who they were, and they were just started putting in quite significant pickup orders. And anyway, ended up pretty much selling to him every week, and I still sell to
Yeah.
him this season as well. And they just found me through Rooted, and yeah, so it kind of grew from there.
Yeah.
But now
That
I know
discovery is huge.
for
Like
them,
that. And
yeah.
I think it can also be helpful for a lot of us where, if we're on our farms and we're kind of working on our own in this environment where, some of us may be introverts and some of us may not want to go out and kind of cold call. This can be a helpful way to connect with people and say, hey, I found you on Rooted. I'd love to bring you some samples. Can I drop by this week?
Yeah, and one thing I have found really helpful, which I did quite a bit last season, this season I feel like, okay, I have too many buyers, which is a
That's a
great
good problem to
it's a
have.
great problem to have. So I haven't put a lot of work into getting new connections
Yeah.
at all this year. But last season, when I saw that email come in, hey, so and so has joined Rooted nearby. Would you like to connect with them? And
Yep.
then if I went and looked and thought, okay, yeah, they're in a good location, or maybe they're on my delivery route or different things. If you get their email address, which you can, and then you personally send a communication to them via
Yep.
email introducing yourself. Like I definitely got a lot of connection that way. So it's sort of like Rooted is connect like making you aware of the
Yep.
of each other, I guess. But
Yeah.
if you do the work and put a little more, bring it to the next
Yeah.
step, I think that does a lot. And so, but yeah, I'd never heard of this place. It's like a bit north of me, but not too far off my delivery route actually. But I would have never connected or tried to find them or,
Yeah.
and so yeah, it was so. But yeah, I think it's great if you can take it from there and you can personalize it and take it
Yeah.
to the next level and lean
And
in.
I think that can be even more the case now as we're seeing kind of businesses shifting out of maybe brick and mortar and sort of that traditional florist model and more into like in-home studios and event planners and maybe the size and shape of the market is changing a little bit. This can help you to find people who maybe are off the beaten path or you wouldn't necessarily find them by Googling because you're able to sort of see right near you.
Yeah, yeah.
This
I've
way.
had even florists kind of say that to me. Like, they're really pretty small wedding and event florists. They work out of their home and they don't want to like have a
Yep,
presence on social media because they don't want that, but they still want to do weddings. And I would have never found them otherwise,
yeah,
or they would have probably never found me too. Like,
totally.
it goes both ways. So, that's great. So come back in part two. We're going to be posting that in just a day or two, and you'll get to see behind the scenes where Amelia screen shares and takes us back into the back end of Rooted Farmers so you can see exactly what's going on there. Don't forget the coupon code cap sensitive abundant blooms 26 if you're interested in joining. And just so you know, I'm not affiliated with Rooted. They're not paying me to do this. This is just truly what works for my farm and what has been helpful to me over the past 6 years that I've used this platform. So I hope that helps, and we'll see you in the next video, part two of this interview.